Hey there, class. Welcome to our pre-algebra Chapter 2 review. We are getting ready for our upcoming Chapter 2 test. So today we're going to do a quick review of the concepts and skills that you want to go into that test feeling super confident with next week. So let's start off with a true or false question. So these questions are asking us to compare two sides of an equation to see if they are equal. If they are equal, then our sentence, this statement, this equation is true. So to compare them, I need to simplify both sides first, because over here I see I have absolute value and here I don't. So I'm going to simplify my absolute value first. Absolute value of -5 is 5. Bring down the subtraction, and the absolute value of -6 is +6. Notice we did not cancel out the negative and the subtraction because this is absolute value, not parentheses. So we take the absolute value first, which makes it positive. So we're subtracting a positive. So bring down the equal sign in the other side of the equation. Then we finish simplifying. We get -1 equals -1. So this is a true statement. Now in our next example, we have absolute value again, but this time it's on the outside of both terms, and we are subtracting a negative. There is no absolute value around the negative. So this time it is going to cancel out, and we're going to get -5 plus 6 is +1. So we get the absolute value of +1 equals 5 plus 6. Well, the absolute value of +1 is 1. 5 plus 6 is 11. Is 1 equal to 11? No. So this is a false statement because these are not equal to each other. All right, so let's move on now to simplifying using our order of operations. So it's important to remember when we are simplifying expressions like these, we need to use our PEMDAS order of operations. So when I look at my first expression, 16 plus -3 times 12 divided by 4. I start by just identifying my operations. Start there to make sure you don't choose the wrong first step. So I have addition, multiplication, and division. So I don't have any parentheses, I don't have any exponents. I do have multiplication and division. Now I'm going to remember that I do multiplication and division from left to right. So the first one I come across when I go from left to right is multiplication. So I'm going to start by multiplying -3 times 12. And that gives me -36. Then I bring down the rest of the expression, making sure to bring everything down. Always look at the end. Sometimes it's really easy to kind of forget these guys at the end. So always double check that you've brought everything down. If you want to, even draw little arrows so you can see if there's something without an arrow under it, it wasn't brought down. Then we have 16 plus -36 divided by 4. Now, I can promise you, a lot of you are going to want to do 16 plus -36 first. We are not going to add first because we still have division. And division is before addition and subtraction. So my next step is to divide -36 divided by 4. So that gives me -9. Then I bring down the rest of my expression. So now I have 16 plus -9 because I did -36 divided by 4. Now, when I do 16 plus -9, I get 7, and there's nothing else to simplify. So our answer is 7. Now let's move over to the next one, because here we have division in the form of a fraction. And we've learned that we treat that as parentheses, and we solve the top and then the bottom and then we divide the final terms. So in the top, I have parentheses. So I'm going to do my parentheses first, which is 12 minus 18. And I get 4 times negative 6. Now I'm going to do my first step at the bottom of my expression as well. So I have division and parentheses with subtraction. I'm going to do the parentheses first. So negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. And we bring down the negative 10 in the division sign. So now we're going to finish simplifying the top. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. And then the bottom, negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. Now, we have negative 24 divided by 2. That's negative 12. So the things to look out for here is that you're going slow enough to identify the correct steps in PEMDAS, and that you're watching out for those negatives. Remember your rules of negatives very carefully on these, because if you put positive 12, technically your answer is wrong. So negative 12 would be our final answer. Now, if we're being asked to find the average of a list of numbers, remember the average is the sum of all the numbers divided by the number of numbers. So before I can figure out my average or divide anything, I have to find the sum of all of my values. Now here I have some negatives and positives, so I'm gonna take it one step at a time. So I'm gonna start with negative 12 plus 15. Negative 12 plus 15 is positive 3. So then I'm gonna add positive 3 plus 7 plus 0 plus negative 5. Now I'm gonna keep going from left to right. So 3 plus 7 is 10 plus 0 plus negative 5. I'm going to cancel out the 0 at this point because I don't need to keep writing it. So I'm just going to do 10 plus negative 5, which is positive 5. So our sum is positive 5. Now we are going to divide that by the number of numbers in our list. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in our list. And when we divide 5 divided by 5, we get 1. So our average in this list is 1. And you might be thinking, how is that the average when I have a number as big as 15? Well, you have a number as big as positive 15, but you also have a number as small as negative 12 and another negative number, which kind of pulls your average down. So an average of 1 makes sense. Let's move on to evaluating expressions given our variable values. So the first one is 2x minus y, and x is negative 2 and y is positive 1. So I'm going to replace those with the values they've given me using parentheses. Otherwise I might mess something up with the negative and think it's subtraction or something. So the first one is 2x. Remember, that's 2 times x, right? That's an easy one to forget when we're first learning to use our variables. So this is going to be rewritten as 2 times negative 2 minus y is 1, so minus 1. Now we have an expression that we need to evaluate with PEMDAS. Here I have multiplication, here I have subtraction. I'm going to do multiplication first. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 minus positive 1. I bring down the next term. Then I have negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. So our expression evaluates to negative 5. The next one is 3x divided by 6. So I'm going to replace the x with the negative 2. And then I'm going to simplify by evaluating the top of our expression. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 over 6. That's negative 6 divided by 6, which is negative 1. Negative divided by positive is negative. Next up, we have y squared plus x squared. Now, this is where the parentheses are super important because you're not just squaring part of y or part of x, you're squaring the whole value. So I'm going to write this as 1 squared plus negative 2 squared. That's important because if I have parentheses around the negative 2, I'm multiplying negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. And 1 times 1 is 1. So 1 plus 4 is 5. Positive 5 is our answer. Next up, we have 5y minus x over negative y. So I have a number of variables now. I have the y included twice. So I'm going to replace both y's with positive 1. So 5 times 1 minus negative 2. Again, use parentheses. Again, you can already see y. And then we put that over negative y, which is negative 1. Now we simplify. Here I have 5 times 1 is 5 minus negative 2 over negative 1. I multiplied first because of PEMDAS, and then I do 5 plus 2, which is 7 over negative 1. 7 divided by negative 1 is negative 7. Now I want to point out, here a very common mistake is to do 1 plus 2 and think that you need to multiply 5 times 3. So if you got negative 15 as your answer, we made that wrong turn. So make sure you multiply first, then subtract. Now the last concept we're going to see on the test is equations. We are going to solve equations. So let's take a look at some examples of that. First, we have n minus 12 equals negative 15. Now remember, our equal sign is kind of like a fence separating both sides of the equation. And we want to get our variable completely alone on one side. To do that, we're going to have to move whatever is currently next to it or attached to it on the side of the equal sign. Now to move it, to get, in this case, minus 12 over to this side and away from the n, we use inverse operations. We do the opposite step as to what's being done. So negative 12 or minus 12, we're going to look at it. The inverse of that subtraction is addition. So we're going to add 12. Now remember, if we add it to the left, we have to add it to the right. After we add it, we see that negative 12 plus 12 cancels out. So all that's left to come down on this side is the n. Then we bring down the equal sign in the middle, and then we solve negative 15 plus 12, which is negative 3. So our answer is negative 3. Now remember, we should always be checking our answers. I will be looking for that on the quiz. Don't lose points because you forget to check. So to check it, I'm going to substitute the value I just got in for my variable. So that would be negative 3 minus 12 equals negative 15. And now I see if that's a true statement by subtracting negative 3 minus 12, negative 15, and bringing down the other side. They are equal, so I know my answer is correct. Now our next equation, first we have to ask ourselves, what is happening? What is happening currently in the equation before I start trying to figure out what to do next? Right now I have x divided by negative 3 equals negative 5. Now I know if I want to get the x alone on this side of the equal sign, I need to move the negative 3. Now in this situation, I'm dividing by -3. So to move it, I am going to multiply by -3. And remember, we do that on both sides. Now, multiplying by -3, we're multiplying by the reciprocal, so that cancels out and leaves just x. Then we bring down the equal sign, and then -5 times -3 is +15. So x equals 15 would be our answer. Now to check it, I'm going to substitute 15 over -3. Then simplify it. 15 divided by -3 is -5. And that is a true statement. So we know our answer is correct. Now the last example we're going to do is -36 equals -6x. So we want to get the x alone. That means we have to move the -6. Now, the mistake a lot of students will make is they'll see the negative sign and think they need to add 6 to both sides. Do not add. The operation happening here is multiplication. So the inverse needs to be division. So we need to divide by -6. Now, if we divide this side by -6, we need to divide the other side by -6 as well, so that this cancels out and leaves us with just x. And then this side we divide, -36 divided by -6 is +6. So our solution, our answer is x equals +6. Now to check it, we plug it in. -36 equals -6 times 6. -36 equals, well, -6 times 6 is -36. So we know our answer is correct. So hopefully this review just helped finalize your confidence with these skills. We've practiced a lot in class, so I expect you to be awesome on this test. And I know after all the hard work you've shown me, you will. So because you have dedicated your time and energy to watching this review video, I will offer you a bonus opportunity. To prove that you watched this video when you take your test next week, I want you to write at the bottom right corner of the test the name of my pup. Now, some students might remember this from the first day of school, but that was a while ago, and I gave you guys a lot of information that day. So those of you watching this video will know that his name is Cooper. So on your test, you're going to go to the bottom right corner and write Cooper to earn your bonus point. That will show me that you watched this whole video and deserve a little bonus for the extra work and effort. So great job, guys. You've been awesome. Keep up the great work at home, and I will see you back in class.